Pharmaphobic is powered by Achieve the Lifestyle, a company dedicated to helping you empower your health, redefine your lifestyle, and all for the health of it. You're listening to Pharmaphobic, where we challenge the state of health in America. I'm Janie, a physician assistant, and I've seen how healthcare keeps people dependent instead of truly healthy.
And I'm Dan, a veteran turned fitness pro here to uncover the truth and explore simple and sustainable health solutions. From big pharma to big food, we're exposing the conflicts of interest keeping us sick and finding better ways to take back our health.
No fluff, no gimmicks, just real talk, real solutions, and a little bit of fun along the way.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Pharmaphobic. This is the podcast where we hope to help you navigate the complex mess that the current health situation is in this country. I'm Dan.
And I'm Janie.
And we are Achieve the Lifestyle. And we are here to bring what we feel like is a combined perspective from a fitness professional
And a medical professional.
and combine that to hopefully help a lot of people navigate the health situation, which we all know it's very complex and there's individual factors that play, a role in this. But generally, there are principles and guidelines that we should all be abiding by. That's where we stand with this. So today we have a specific topic. We want to get to what is actually healthy? How do we define health? How do we know what behaviors are healthy or how we're healthy? And how can we say, hey, I'm in a good state of health? So let's start off. Janie, what is the actual definition of health by the dictionary? Because that's where people are going to look first.
It is the state of being free of illness or injury.
Pretty broad. Okay. So that's an objective measure, and we're going to get subjective, but we're going to combine it here with objectivity, because if I just read you that and you're like, well, I don't have any illness, I feel fine. But are you actually healthy? So that is what we're going to put detail into this conversation and understand that some of this stuff is objectively so, like if your blood work reads this, you're not in a state of health. But some of this stuff is also more subjective when we start talking about mental health and physical capabilities and that sort of thing. Now, to you, what do you see as healthy outside of that definition of that Oxford gave us right there?
Right. And so I would just think of when I work with my patients and I talk to them if they have a healthy lifestyle, if they're healthy, it's, are you eating well, sustainably? Are you moving your body regularly? Are you, this is important, pooping daily? Okay. Are you sleeping well to where you feel refreshed the next day? Do you have good social connections around you, good relationships? And are you managing your stress well?
Okay, so you said a bunch of stuff, and I think it kind of carries over into what we see as pillars of health, right? That we use in our coaching and in our definition when we're trying to get people to a better state. We go by some principles, some guidelines. We call them the pillars. That it's little buckets that we have to deposit into if we want to achieve long-term, sustainable, meaningful state of health, right? So obviously some of those are physical, some of those are emotional. You mentioned stress management and social connections. Some of those are intellectual, like if you're not, stimulating your brain and your thought, you're probably doing yourself a disservice, that sort of thing. And this is where we get objective versus subjective, because a lot of people hear health and they immediately assume physical. They don't think about anything else.
Exactly.
The more evolved person might bring in mental health. The more evolved person than that knows that mental health and physical health are linked together for better or for worse. And that's where we want to take it. We want to go from that, I'm not overweight, so I'm healthy. No, we want to go past that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm kind of happy, so I'm good, I'm healthy. No, we want to go even further past that.
Right. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people, when they go to their medical professional, and this was you look healthy, you have a good body weight, you're regularly active, but you weren't healthy because your sleep was off,
Yep.
Your stress management was
So
off.
my subjective view of what healthy was very much tied to physical health. This is years ago. We're talking what, 7?
Well, I would say
What?
even the people who your medical providers were probably like, yeah, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes, in a lot of ways. Yeah. And that's something. So a couple years ago, before Janie and I started, like this is me post-military, somewhere in there in between. I was in what I think I'm in better shape now, but I was in pretty good physical shape. Like, I trained a lot of jujitsu. I had my body composition was phenomenal. Like I could see abs every day, but there's anxiety I was dealing with. My sleep was super intermittent. My eating habits were, even though I would eat good foods, the way, the timing and the amount of food that I was getting throughout the days was inconsistent. Drinking a good amount, and these things were causing a lot of issues. And as we mentioned in the last episode, when I went to get my blood work, they're like, yo, you're pre-diabetic.
Yeah.
I'm like, impossible. Look at me.
Yeah.
So that's where I learned, hey, health, it's past what you can see. Okay. So
Yeah.
so now objective metrics of that were, I'm like, I look great. I can do certain things with my body. I can run really fast. I can lift heavy. I can, train hard, yada, yada, yada. But objectively, the blood work was saying, nah, bro, you're not good.
Yeah.
So we're going to combine here in looking at this.
Yeah. And some people say that they're healthy, but they haven't discovered any of the objective metrics. They haven't been to a provider or had blood work or anything done in years. So they don't feel bad per what they're used to, because that's also a thing. Some people get used to how they feel. And then they've never had blood work done. They haven't seen a provider in many years, so they don't know that their blood pressure's high or their blood sugar's high or all these other things. So some people are ignorant to their actual health and just assume that they're healthy.
Man, and that's that ignorance is bliss
Yeah.
part, to live like that with your health. That's a crapshoot. You're rolling the dice there big time, and you could get blindsided at some point by an unforeseen circumstance that you could have seen, coming if you'd been staying on top of this. Now, this goes to also this ignorance is bliss mindset, I think speaks to a lot to the first type of people that I want to talk to is, people that maybe they look a certain way, like they're skinny, quote unquote, and they're not actively doing anything to make themselves unhealthy, but they're also not actively doing anything to foster health, meaning, oh, I don't eat fast food every day. So, and I weigh 115 pounds, whatever. So I'm healthy.
Yeah, that passive wellness.
That passive wellness. And I really want to communicate here that, health is not only a constantly moving target, and it's something that you got to work on every day. That's why we talk about fostering a lifestyle that supports building meaningful levels of health.
Right.
Makes sense. So let's talk about that for a second, because this could be a lot of people. I'm healthy.
Yeah.
I'm healthy. I don't drink Coke, for example. I'm healthy.
Okay.
So what can we say to them? Like, what are things that we want to look at to expand that perspective and actually put some meat on the bone behind the fact that you want to call yourself healthy?
Right. So I would say, what do you do to add to your health?
I don't drink Coke.
Okay. So, but what do you do to deposit into your health? What's an active something you do to reinforce your health? Not I don't do, but what do you do?
Yeah. That's a good question. That starts a conversation.
Yeah.
What now? Do we also understand, I guess would be my challenge, that let's say you're sitting on the couch and you're not doing anything. You're not smoking cigarettes, for example, but you're also not moving.
Yep.
So you see where that that doesn't work, because if you're not working on it, you're kind of inadvertently working against it.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like, we're in a constant state of deterioration. That's why we have to work on it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think people also need to realize that, with everything, like doing nothing can be positive or harmful, but also doing too much can be positive or harmful, right? So exercise is a good example. If you never exercise, that's harmful to your body because of what you said, just the natural deterioration that happens. If you exercise too much to a point where you can't support it with, food intake, recovery, that can be detrimental to the body. So this is where being healthy gets tricky for a lot of people, because they're like, well, I'm sitting here, I'm not doing anything bad. I don't know what to do good. And what if I do too much of that, or if they can't support what they think is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we could use that example that we were talking about previously, like myself, like I did too much.
Yeah.
And I worked myself into a state of unhealth because I was not supporting it with proper rest, proper recovery, and staying away from certain things that were not favorable to the amount of stress that I was under.
Yeah. And one thing I really try to express with people who I work with is that it's all connected, those things. And we've already said that a little bit. Like, you can't just be a normal body weight and be healthy, right? There's other things that influence it. But like, we'll just stay with your example because we've already started it. The fact that you weren't sleeping well fed into you feeling anxious during the day, fed into you drinking to cope with it, which made your sleep not do well, right? Mm-hmm. You didn't eat as much as you should have because we identified that, but you weren't eating as much as you needed to, which caused you to feel probably more anxious throughout the day. Because if you don't eat enough, you
stress.
will feel more anxious, causing you to then drink, so it's everything is connected.
Yeah, and then you throw super high intensity workouts multiple times a week on there, and then you're just adding to the stress tank there, and it's putting you in a state of unhealthy. But doggone it, I looked great. Whoo, I looked great.
You did. I would say you look like the stereotypical jujitsu. I mean, your legs were a little. So.
I take offense to that. Because I'm a big, thick boy, That's how I see myself. Now, I think where we're going with this is why this question came to mind is because there's the term healthy and oh, that's healthy. This person's healthy is overused. Mm-hmm. And I think we saw this over the past couple of years during the event that we shall not name, where we were attributing the word healthy to people that really didn't fit that mold, neither objectively nor subjectively. Now, listen, before we go down this road, some of these things might make people feel a certain kind of way, but I think we're injecting accountability into the situation, and holding yourself accountable is important. And if you hear something and you're like, oh, I thought that was healthy, but it really isn't, and it challenges your paradigm and it makes you feel uncomfortable, I hope that you would kind of examine this a little bit and sit with it and be like, hey, why is that? And that it makes you curious to find out more, not just, oh, I'm insulted and this whole sensitive thing, because that doesn't solve anything. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it might turn you off to possible solutions or things to consider in your little health journey. Now, I'll go to both ends of the spectrum, because we can get down this rabbit hole of people that high performers, people that are chasing, physical competition and the edges of physical limits, like ultra runners and power lifters. And these people are like, hey, I'm going for this high athletic pursuit. Are they healthy? Is that healthy? And you can experience the benefits of health on the way there. But a lot of these people end up in a place where, hey, they're not in a good state of health because they're pursuing this peak expression that is on the way to squatting 700 pounds in the case of a power lifter, or on the way to running 100 miles in a race. In case of an ultra runner, I'd argue you'd put yourself in a pretty good state of unhealth, where you're kind of compromising your body and sacrificing your body to achieve this very specific goal.
I think bodybuilders are
excellent example.
And people can really visualize that and unfortunately, people picture bodybuilders as the pinnacle of health because of the way they look. Mm-hmm. When really, when they step on that stage, if you know a bodybuilder, they'll be like, I was not healthy.
Yeah, they're dehydrated.
Their body fat percentage, especially for women, and for men, is so low that hormone production is compromised. Mm-hmm. And then the eating habits that they have to adhere to and they become, I think, attached to in a sense is really disruptive, especially post-show.
Yep.
like coming out of it. And so to that is not healthy because they're pursuing a specific goal and there's sacrifices that have to be made. What we're trying to talk to is being in this middle ground where you're healthy, it's sustainable, you're getting positive feedback from what you're doing to promote health, both visually, so aesthetically, but also in terms of your blood work, how you feel, and your ability to, live a long, fruitful life. Now, I feel some people try to chase aesthetics to the point where they compromise their health.
Yeah.
But they don't have the possible reward like a bodybuilder will, right? And so I think people have goals where they want to look a certain way, but they don't want to put the efforts into it, or they don't understand the sacrifices that need to be made, and they don't understand that can't be adhered to long term.
Yeah, I think that's probably one thing that sabotages people's pursuit of health is that inability to look at things long term.
Yes.
Where it's like, I want to lose 30 pounds for whatever reason, for this trip, for this wedding, to fit in this dress, to, go to this high school reunion, whatever it is, but you're not thinking about what is going to happen past that. And that's where people end up chasing these quick fixes and these short-term like things that are actually going to put them in a worse state, like crash diets and things like that, or exercise methodologies that long-term are not going to serve you. Now, putting it into like objective terms, because then on the other side of the spectrum, you have the day zero person that just isn't thinking about this. I'm gonna eat Chick-fil-A every day. What's up? I feel great. It makes me happy. So we're
that goes, healthy at any size.
woo!
So, like it doesn't matter what I do, I feel good. It doesn't matter how I look, I embrace it, I feel great, which don't get me wrong. I want people to be comfortable and proud of their bodies. I want them to feel good in their skin. However, people need to understand if you can be healthy at any size, you can also be unhealthy at any size. And then that's where the definition of health can really apply to. If you're, 500 pounds, but you love it, you have people reinforcing it because some people,
there is a reinforcement there, and it's a construct that I don't think is rooted in the person's best interest.
Right. And they're like, it's my body. If you don't like it, you're fat phobic. Okay. But when I see somebody who's, morbidly obese, 500 pounds, I think of, long term, what are their joints going to be like in 10, 20, 30 years, their knees, right? What's their risk of illnesses, of if they have to have surgery, if they have to have anesthesia, like risk goes up, risk goes up, risk goes up. And then I also think about their mobility. Are they able to get around? Are they able to move comfortably? Are they able to sleep well, right? Because then sleep apnea, okay? And so all these things is what I think of. It's not just how they look.
I think I'll frame this in others end of the spectrum. Those world's strongest men like Hafthor and Brian Shaw. These men walk around at over 400 pounds.
Right.
And they're all muscle. Guess what they do when they stop the sport? Or think of an NFL lineman that weighs 300 pounds. Guess what they all do when they stop the sport to further their, thinking about longevity?
They lose the weight.
They lose the weight.
Well, when we were at Summer Strong and Stan Efferding was talking, and he was saying the world's strongest men, mass moves mass, you got to get big, right? A lot of them develop sleep apnea. They have to have a CPAP. They go on high blood pressure medication. Some will admit they do not feel well.
No, they're sacrificing their health to pursue this high-end goal. Now, if that man who's training, that person who's training, who's lifting, who's doing all these crazy athletic feats, if they're in a state of unhealth, what is somebody who's not doing any of that in? Now, this is where we go into objective metrics. You mentioned a lot of stuff: joint pain, cytokine storms in the body, inflammatory markers, where you will end up eventually. Because let's say, hey, you're healthy at any size right now. We tested your blood, which we like blood work. because it gives us a measure of objectivity of where you're at. Think back again, myself, 8-pack, pre-diabetic. Okay, so we like blood work. Hey, we hit the blood work, and right now, where you're at right now, the blood work looks fine, which opens a
normal.
It's normal. Now it opens up the conversation of what we call normal, and let's go into that a little bit. And goes back to our previous episode where you talked about not flagging things that are trending towards abnormal. So they're telling you you're normal, but maybe you're trending towards abnormal, and that provider isn't giving you the heads up. But we know objectively what happens to the body when it's in this chronic state of inflammation caused by, excess weight and excess adiposity, the oxidative stress and all this stuff.
Or even even, a poor diet, lack of adequate sleep, high stress.
Yeah.
Right? Because I never like to focus on weight as the end all be all.
Exactly.
Right.
No, and by that same token, let's inject this caveat that there are people who are quote unquote skinny that their blood work and their bodily function is similar to somebody who's very overweight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I think the first thing is that when you go to the your primary care provider or whoever, or a lot of people can get blood work through online stuff, like you don't have to technically go to somebody, and the lab markers will come back normal or abnormal. Well, I like to look at what's optimal, okay? Mm-hmm. Because I think we deserve to just be, okay, this is normal, you're in a range, but how do you feel, and do you want to be optimally? Like, do you want to walk around and just be okay? Or do you want to feel great?
Yeah, you want the full expression.
Especially if you're trying to do things to feel better and you don't, you want to figure out why, okay? And so when you go to a provider, the basic stuff you'll get is a complete blood count, a comprehensive metabolic panel, a cholesterol panel, maybe an A1C, which is the 3-month average blood sugar, maybe. It depends. And maybe a TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone. Okay. And those things can be abnormal, but you can have other things going on that are red flags being raised that aren't seen by that, which I think should be done along with basic labs. And I know a lot of other people do, but traditionally aren't.
Yeah. Like I'll think of a man, and this is a buzzword here because it's a very popular topic and we all care about it. But let's say I show up in my TSH and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, it's quote unquote normal. My testosterone's in the gutter. Am I running optimally?
No.
Exactly. So that's something like there's a lot to consider here. You know what I mean? Where these things in a snapshot in time, they might look normal, but there's other things alerting you towards the fact that you're trending towards abnormal, and maybe they're not telling you, or maybe you don't realize that that's a problem.
Yeah.
Now, like you said, I don't think, and this is something that we focus on, if you are in an abnormal state, so you're not doing anything, it's a sliding scale like we talk about. We want to trend towards the healthier, stronger, more capable version of yourself. Now, maybe we get you from day 0 to day 2 where you're like somewhat eating healthy half of the time and you're doing, 1 or 2 workouts a week. And then, hey, boom, that's stage 1. And then we move you to stage 2, or maybe you're in like stage 2 and we want to improve upon, know that this is a constant work in progress where the closer you get, the more you start sliding towards what we're going to call like optimal health, the better off you're going to be in the long run.
Yeah.
Now, we operate under the term optimal, meaning, hey, we don't want to just hit I'm kind of doing the thing. We're looking to get really, really good and feel really good about what we're doing, how we're moving, how we're operating day to day.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm. Now, subjectively speaking, I inject a lot of obviously, I'm a fit pro, I'm a strength coach, like I'm in performance, and I inject capability. That's why I say stronger, healthier, more capable version of yourself. I inject function and capability into the definition of health. Mm-hmm. Picture this. Let's say your body metrics are, you're skinny, quote unquote. I don't like the word skinny. I'm just using it and I'm going like this because that term doesn't mean anything to me. I actually think it's kind of useless, if you will. But let's say you're quote unquote skinny, but you go up a flight of stairs and you're winded on top. Are you healthy?
We should say everybody's winded going upstairs. It's, do you quickly recover?
Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
like it rocks your world.
Yeah.
Let's say that. Or, you can't carry your groceries in because you're fairly weak, but you're skinny. Are you
Yeah.
healthy?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So there, your capability, what you can do with your body is compromised. And that to me is a future indicator of not being healthy. When
Right.
you're losing capability, losing function. Hey, I can't raise my arms. My hips don't work that well this way, but I'm skinny. I'm good to go. There again, you're losing function. That means you're going to lose capability to do things. And in the future, this can lead to an unhealthy situation.
Yeah.
Okay, we can talk about sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle mass over time. They say age-related decline in muscle mass, but really, you can find some young people this day and age.
It starts at 30, in your 30s.
Yeah, but
That's when it starts. If you're generally active, if you're unactive, it can start sooner.
Yeah, well, this day and age, people are getting younger and younger, suffering the symptoms of sarcopenia. Why? Because there's a lot of inactivity in the body. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. It's the way it is. That's why we say this is a constantly, hey, we're working on it. We're working on it. We're working on it.
Yeah. And especially with my older patients, I stress that, loss of muscle. Some grab onto it, some don't. It doesn't compute for them. But I think what's also more important is loss of balance.
Oof.
If you don't use it, you lose it, right? Which increased risk of falls. If you're over the age of 65, you fall and break a hip. Within that year, you are at a higher risk of dying. And so we do not want to fall, okay? Also, in the education I've been doing with the strength coach certification, more so loss of muscle mass, loss of muscle power. And you can probably speak better to that, especially with the older clients that you work with. If you lose muscle power,
yeah, so
you can't catch yourself from a fall. You can't, like those quick
So that
movements.
quick movement, that quick reaction, the fast twitch muscle fibers, those are going to be the first ones that you're going to lose. And if you never stimulate them, they die off rather quickly. So having power and speed is a quality. It's the hardest one to get, and it's the easiest one to lose.
Right.
So knowing that you got to expose yourself, now you could think like, well, Dad, I'm not trying to run fast. I'm not trying to. Okay, got it. If you're going to fall, you need a quick reaction to boom, grab yourself, boom, take a step, hold, whatever. Like there's a use for that in your quality of life. And then there it goes, talking about capability and as it relates and function as it relates to your quality of life. There's a use for that. So you want to maintain capability and you want to measure it as part of your health paradigm. Does that make sense? Like, we can't just say, hey, I'm skinny. We can't just say, hey, my blood work in this moment in time is here. We got to say like, hey, my body is capable. I have function. I have capability. I can do things for myself. And hopefully I can retain that capability well into my older age, which is why you got to keep working out. Blood work looks great. This is a very objective metric. And I want it within here, like learning what's optimal. Don't just be like, oh yeah, you're normal. Because those normal ranges, you go to one doctor, he'll tell you you're normal. You go to another one, he'll tell you you're not.
Right.
So we got to like really learn like, hey, we're trending towards optimal. Do I just want to be mediocre in this pursuit? Like I'm normal, I'm good to go. Or do we want to like work towards the better version of this stuff?
And I've got a good one for you. I know I've worked with some patients who their metric of health is I go to my doctor every year. I take my medications as directed. I'm up to date on my immunizations. Therefore, I'm healthy.
Oh, Lord.
And then I have to shift for them to look at your health is more what you do every day than what you do, if you see the doctor once or twice a year, if you get this shot every so often, if you take this medication every day. Like, what are you doing to promote good health every day?
So let's put a situation here. I've unfortunately been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I go on my insulin, metformin, GLP, whatever I use to manage that. Now it's under control, so my diabetic symptoms are controlled. Am I healthy? And
I need more information.
well, I'm just saying, but it's like I'm not actively working to reduce my A1C. I'm just letting the medication do its thing.
Well, so this is good because most medical providers would just take that information and be done. They wouldn't take the step further, be like, but I want to know, what are you eating? Are you exercising? How is your sleep?
Yeah, I'm riding the insulin wave. I'm like, I take my freaking boom because I'm gonna go eat ice cream, baby. But so I don't want to, like that sort of thing where it's you went out of medication. You had to, whatever the reason, even though, we always want to talk about what you were doing before you absolutely had to go into that medication. But you're managing this disease. Like what I don't want people to do is conflate or assume that they're healthy because their illness is managed with a medication. And it deters them, or it gives them an excuse to not do anything about it.
Yeah, that's one of my things.
Because it's controlled.
The high use of pharmaceuticals has enabled people to continue on their poor lifestyle choices that got them to the place they're at. And I've been challenged by this with somebody who is a diabetes educator saying, I cannot blame the person's lifestyle for getting them where they're at. Like, I shouldn't blame the person. And I don't blame, but if you're going to tell me that modifying their diet helps with their diabetes control, then you also have to agree with the way they're eating led them to this place.
Yep. And listen, we're not saying that to just poke a finger in your chest like, hey, you did this to yourself. But here we go with the accountability and sort of thing, because whether by ignorance or by choice.
Or by the powers that be that don't give us good guidelines of what is healthy.
True. Like a lot of the mainstream health advice is absolute, what's the word I'm looking for here? Dookie.
Oh,
so it's absolute dookie. It's terrible advice, and it's paid for. It's sponsored. It's marketing money from the big food and the big pharma people, just giving you half truths so that you can kind of lull yourself to sleep.
Right.
And if, a lot of people are working themselves into a state of illness, not on purpose. They just don't know any better. They're like, well, they told me to do this. They told me to eat those healthy grains every day. So I'm just eating
that food pyramid.
Yeah, I'm eating my toast for breakfast and nothing else. I'm staying away from those eggs. So I'm doing great.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize that the recommended daily allowance or recommended daily amount, of something like protein is the recommended amount to prevent deficiency. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like the low end of the low end. Yep.
Right. So yes, we don't want anyone to be deficient in protein, but also if you're eating just enough to not die, do you feel good?
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, and then, so there's a state of, I feel like there's a construct here where they kind of keep people in a little bit of state of ignorance about things that are healthy and things that are not. And unfortunately, people follow this advice thinking it's well-intentioned, which, listen, and they end up in a state of illness.
Right, which is why in the last episode, we talked about the most important thing is making people aware.
Yep.
Right? Because you can follow the general guidelines set forth about what to eat, how often to exercise, or what your provider tells you, and you can be doing it and still not be achieving your optimal health, and to no fault of your own. But that's why we promote people to stay curious. And we hope to share this information to help people be aware that there are better things that you can do for your health that don't necessarily mean you need to eat less, like general recommendations you get from doctors. So you're trying to eat healthy and they say, eat less, exercise more. Okay, well, you have a full-time job and 2 kids. You can't spend, 8-10 hours at the gym every week, right? And it's not about doing more, but doing things that, or maybe you do need to do more, but doing things that are more optimal to promote health. And I think that's where the medical system, the governmental guidelines, a lot of things fail people and or cause confusion.
Yeah, no doubt. It's unfortunate that that's where we're at. And then, it just lulls people to sleep in this sense of like, well, I was told this was healthy 20 years ago, like some people are following nutritional guidelines from the 90s. And it's like, no, we got to stay on top of this because these advices and these
Yeah.
guidelines are evolving, not to mention some of them are getting straight debunked, and eggs, red meat, and some of these things, salt as a mineral instead of like a cause of all mortality. Oh my God, it's so bad. Why are you putting salt in your food? But anyway, it's this thing where staying curious, maintaining awareness, remembering that your health, it is the most valuable thing you're ever going to own. So you should guard it as such, and taking responsibility for it and taking charge for it. Do not, look at me right here, my face right here. Look at me right there. Do not outsource responsibility for your health. Well, my doctor told me. Well, this person said, no, 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 no. You have to undertake this and take ownership and take the information. And unfortunately, that means you're gonna have to put some time and research things and be curious about it so that you can protect your most valuable asset. Okay, if let's take health out, make it $1 million. I'm sure you're gonna be out there ready to fight somebody over your $1 million. Well, health is probably worth more than $1 million. Okay? Long lasting, long term health is probably worth more than that. So it goes to say that I think this is where I, not unfortunately, I got to put my hat on. Boop, boop, tinfoil. There's people, entities, companies benefit and highly profit off the state of ignorance and off the confusion of what is actually healthy. Okay? To the tune of billions of dollars a year. Now, like I always say, if people do gnarly things in the streets for $100, what do you think they'll do for 100 million? What do you think they'll do for 1 billion? Okay, so like there has to be a little bit of skepticism here, and you have to approach it as such as like, hey, this is there's things that are actively working against me that may be sold to me as healthy, but they're not. Right. And that's where all, the circling back to the pharmaceutical thing, like, well, I take my shots, I take this medication, I go boom, 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 I'm healthy, but I'm not doing anything actively to like improve my health circumstances. I'm just taking these metrics where I sit there and I get hit with this or I get hit with that or I swallow this or take that and I'm actually healthy now.
Yeah. So with us saying all this stuff and we've kind of covered a lot of things and somebody's listening and they're like, okay, so how do I be healthy? How do I know if I'm healthy? Right? And I would say, unfortunately, don't hate me, but it depends. Right?
Yes.
Because everybody's going to be different. Your life circumstances are different, and we want you to have your optimal health within that. And it's also going to change throughout your lifetime as well because stuff happens, stressors happen. You go through a great time, you go through a bad time, all these things. But there's general concepts on repeat, and we always advocate for people to seek help one-on-one if they can. Like get a coach, get a trainer, right? For your exercise if you have the means to. Get a nutritionist, get a dietitian if you have the means to, behavioral health specialist to help manage your stress. Hopefully we all know how to sleep, but sometimes we do need some guidance on that to make it more optimal. But the general things I think that we should share is like with diet, get rid of ultra processed foods. That can be a great first step.
Yeah.
Right. And eating more whole foods, having a good source of protein with each meal.
So I bucket it. So there's principles and guidelines, like we said at the beginning, that are going to apply to everybody.
Right.
Now, how you adopt those principles and guidelines is going to be different. It's going to vary you're going to personalize that. But the principles and the guidelines are going to be the same. Hey, we want to see your A1C at a certain level. We want to have the body composition more muscle than body fat, et cetera, et cetera. So if we bucket that, we can talk about nutrition. You need to eat a certain way, staying away, like you're saying, from ultra-processed foods.
Right. In future episodes, we will go down the rabbit hole of processed foods.
Yeah. No, that's something that we could beat, what isn't, we could really get busy there. And
But the main thing I want to say is just eat more whole natural foods, right?
yeah,
so
like single ingredient type stuff. Yeah.
And then moving your body regularly. Again, that's going to look like I do certain activities to move my body every day. You may do something different.
Yeah.
But hey, we're both moving our body, right?
Now, the guidelines of that and the principles are you're going to need resistance training to stimulate muscle.
Yes.
What resistance training you do, that's going to vary. You might be doing a bodybuilding thing. This person's doing an athletic performance thing. But we need to lift some weights. We need to get some steps in. We need some sort of aerobic capacity builder. So there's your movement. Connections, we talk about that emotional health component, how you relate to other people, family members, friends, and all these sort of things absolutely plays a part in how healthy you're going to be. If you're in a toxic relationship, how do you think that mental health is going to be? It's going to be trash.
Not to mention it could sabotage you from your goals. Like if you're like, okay, I'm not eating processed foods, I'm trying to eat better foods, and then here comes my husband walk in with, Burger King.
I think, we should definitely address that in the future.
Stress management goes a little bit with the social connections, help with that. But I get this a lot with my patients. I ask this question with just your annual physicals. How do you manage stress? And I had this one woman, I remember her specifically. It kind of, I don't know, and then she was on my schedule 2 weeks later. And I didn't know why, because it wasn't for any certain reason. And I was like, what's going on? And she's like, you asked me about my stress management, my physical, and then I realized I don't have anything. I don't do anything. And my job is stressful. And so sometimes you do things that you just don't know that are stress outlets. So just real quick, spending time with people you love, goes back to the connections, good stress outlet. The OG stress outlet, how we evolve to outlet stress is physical activity. Everybody's heard this. A bear attacks you. What do? You either fight or run away, fight or flight. Okay. So that's the original way to outlet stress. Laughing can be a great way to outlet stress. Before I used to take my exams in PA school, I would stop 20 minutes before and just watch stand-up comedy. Crying can outlet stress, and doing something creative. So that's why journaling is a big thing. Coloring has become popular. Drawing, painting, listening to music, stuff like that can be very hit on the creative section of our brain, which can be an outlet for stress. And then
spending time outside. Well, sleep. Let's hit sleep first.
Yeah. So sleep, obviously, in a perfect world, we would all get 8+ hours of sleep a night, but we really want to aim for 7 to 9. People in different circumstances, I understand. It's not that you are purposely trying to not get sleep or you're doing things to sabotage your sleep, but you literally do not have enough time to sleep. So then we're trying to optimize that sleep. So no screens anywhere from 30 minutes to 90 minutes before bed. If you have to, use blue blockers. Try to replicate the circadian rhythm, daytime, nighttime. So when you wake up, expose yourself to light, preferably real light, but artificial light can help too. When the sun goes down, put on blue blockers, make your house cool, dark, quiet. So we're starting to follow this pattern. Will help set your sleep. If you do have any sleep issues, in future episodes, we will talk about sleep apnea and other things, and hopefully have a guest on that can really, really speak on that. Yeah. And then, sorry, you were saying
time outside. Yeah, exposure to the outdoors. Man, we are in this massive, it truly is the Matrix out here, and we're doing it to ourselves. We live indoors way more than we should be. Every day people lose exposure to, nature and the outdoors and sunlight and this sort of thing. And it's really showing in the collective health of people. Mm-hmm. This is a thing. We were not meant to be cooped up like freaking chickens, and they're not meant to be cooped up either, but that's another conversation. But,
free range.
Yeah, free range chickens. Free the chickens, y'all. But anyway.
You're right.
We got to get outside. We got to see the sun. That goes back to that circadian rhythm. Good luck resetting your circadian rhythm to maximize your sleep quality if you never go outside.
Yeah.
You know, you need fresh air. Like you can just feel it if you work indoors in an office for 8, 9, 10 hours a day and you got that fake light hitting you and you get there before the sun goes up and you leave after the
And
sun
you're
goes
looking
down.
at a computer screen all
Yeah.
day.
And you're looking at a computer screen all day, blue light bombing the hell out of yourself. When you go outside, you could feel the difference. This is like this, it's nature. You're fighting nature at this point if you're trying to not be outdoors. So that is an important guideline there that we need to make an effort to go outside and, you know, quote unquote, touch grass, as the kids would say.
And I tell people, even if it's just you go outside and, you know, take a few deep breaths, you know, periodically throughout work if you don't have time. You know, if you're able to after lunch, go for a walk outside. Okay. And I understand that depends on where your job's located, the local safety. I understand all that. Or sitting by a window. So at least you're getting some natural light in. There was something else. Oh, the Japanese, the forest bathing. Yeah. Yeah. That's a
therapy that, you know, there's a study on this. I think I've posted about it on Instagram where they like took people that were experiencing depression and anxiety, and they basically took them on this thing called forest bathing. So they're out walking in the woods and getting in nature for a couple hours a day. And the feedback on that was big decreases in these feelings of anxiety and depression. I mean, it's I know for people that live in concrete jungles, you know, we're lucky to be down here in South Florida and the beach is like right there. And we can like get on the sand and, you know, smell the ocean. And this one, the sun's always out here and there's plenty of green. But people that live in, say, a place like New York City where you really got to go out of your way to find nature. And I don't know if Central Park fits that bill, but you got to deal, you know, you got to take it how you can get it. And if that means like going out of your way to like, hey, I'm going to walk over here, or I'm going to take the train and go walk in these little parks that I know are good areas. Like, you know, remember, this is a conscious effort and this is a constantly evolving thing. And we've just outlined 5 areas that we should probably be depositing into to actually pursue what we're going to call actual health. Okay. We want to refine what we're eating. We want to make sure we're getting plenty of movement. Okay. And working on our capability, building resilient bodies and capable bodies. Just notice I didn't say they got to look a certain way. I didn't say that. You know, there's an objective metric of muscle to body fat ratio that we want to be in. But really, for us, we're going to prioritize capability and function. Okay. We want to really connect with people that we care about. You know, we want to build meaningful relationships. If that's your family, your sons, your daughters, your spouse, you know, you want to have all those relationships. You want to actively work on making sure that they're a positive addition to your life and that you're the same for them. And, or maybe it's friends, you know, like you know, really good friends, and make sure that what you're basing that connection on is not something fickle like, hey, we go out drinking every weekend. You know what I mean? That's we can save that for a future episode, but make sure that the foundation of that relationship is solid. What else? We're looking at our sleep. Maybe you're in a time in your life, hey, I'm building a business. We can relate to that. And sleep is going to be hard to come by because my hours are unpredictable. I'm a trainer. Anybody who's a trainer knows some days I get off at a reasonable time. Some days I don't. So, and then I got to be back early. So the sleep might not be predictable. Or you have a brand new child and that kid's like putting you through it. You know, you're like, oh my God, did I really want to be a parent? That sort of thing. So sleep isn't, whatever it is, make sure that you try to protect your sleep as much as you can. And the sleep that you are getting is as good as it can be. Okay. And then we want to make sure that we spend some time outside. Now we're putting in the buckets that are actually going to help build a meaningful state of health for the long term.
Right.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
You got anything to add to
that? Stress management, but
that's right. Stress management.
It's interesting if you put something into all of that stuff, you will find that you manage stress easier.
Ooh, yeah, so. No doubt. These things are they're very tied together, you know, and mental and physical health are tied together. And anybody who tries to tell you differently is full of dookie.
Oh, goodness.
Okay. That's the word for today. Now, speaking, going back to those constructs, and we can end it here. That we're talking about like stuff that's actively kind of working against your health that you think it's there to protect your health, but it's not necessarily looking out for your best interest.
You mean like the FDA?
Oh yeah, the shots fired across the bow. Yes, the FDA definitely falls into this category, whether by design or by incompetence or by just luck of the draw. It definitely is an entity that it's been very sobering to find out just how bad that construct is. I think, I used to think the FDA worked a certain way. I used to think they were like the testers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in the healthcare field, medications are FDA approved or they're not. If they're FDA approved, they're great. Supplements are not FDA approved, so you got to be careful.
Yep.
Right? But come to find out that the FDA doesn't necessarily have your best interest in mind all the time, as we've recently seen was something that for so long people have been raising their hands like, hey, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And the FDA is like, no, it's okay. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine.
Hey, it's fine. It's fine. They said it was fine.
And now recently what happened?
So in recent days, the FDA decided to ban old red dye 40 or whatever, which, that's a start. And we are happy that this happened because that's not food. It's not food. We shouldn't be consuming that. It's a chemical. It's a crazy thing that people for over 40 years, think about this. I've been alive for 41. So the majority of my life, people have been sounding the alarm, scientists, researchers, regular people, on the harms of red 40. Okay, cancers, ADHD, all sort of gastrointestinal issues. They've been sounding the alarm and people are getting sick. You're like, I don't know why you're getting sick. And the FDA was saying, it's fine. No, it's fine. It's fine. And now you're acknowledging that for the past. So I have this thing where I'm like, man, that pisses me off. But I'm also glad that it finally happened. But man, it pisses me off because the alarm was being sounded for a long time. 40 years is a long time, yo. And it's probably been in our food for longer than that, and now you got to look at the blues and the yellow 5s and the blue 3s or whatever the hell names are that these things are. But it just begs the question, you have to really sit there and be like, man, it's not just what I do. I'm also navigating this construct where there's stuff that is going to work against me. And I need to be very vigilant.
And I think it goes back to what you said at the start. You have to own your health. Nobody is going to do it for you or save you. Even, it would be great if we could rely on the FDA to have our best interest in mind and we just follow what they recommend and it's sound and it's good and we're fine. But we cannot.
Yeah. And I liked how they definitely said, it's fine. We're going to do it now.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But, leave you with this little tidbit. What's the level of funding that the FDA takes from the pharmaceutical company? So from the industry that they claim to regulate, we think that we're paying for the FDA with taxpayer-funded dollars. And this is why when you start deconstructing this problem, it's a cold shower. And especially to people, like I thought it worked a certain way. And then I'm learning more and more every day that it does not work that certain way. You think it's 100% taxpayer funded. It's a government entity,
is it
right?
Not?
Oh, no, it is not. 70% of the budget for the FDA comes from where? The pharmaceutical companies.
Stop it.
Oh my God. You can look this, they all pool their money in and put in to pay for the agency that's going to tell them how to operate. And then if you want to get into this incestuous relationship where regulators from the FDA end up working for pharmaceuticals and guys that work for pharmaceuticals come to the FDA where you see, you can go in and be like, hey, we need to call into question. Just because it has that stamp doesn't mean that it's actually put together in our best interest, okay? I used to think that they were the testers. So like, hey, that thing has to go in for independent testing from the FDA.
Nope.
Not true. The FDA doesn't test anything. They just look at guidelines for scientific studies and they say, yep, you followed them, this is good to go. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. We're going to leave it for another time, but I just want to plant that bug, and I want people to understand really, hey, listen, it's a complex issue. That's why we need to create awareness, and we need to understand that we have a choice, okay? And that there are solutions to the problem, but you got to be crazy enough to freaking look for them, okay?
Yeah.
Anything you want to add, Jane?
No, that's great.
Well, that's an episode, guys. Hope you enjoyed this, and join us on the next one. Thanks for listening to the Pharmaphobic podcast. If you found this conversation interesting, which I know you did, make sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And also make sure to check us out on Instagram at Achieve the Lifestyle. And if you're interested in pursuing a stronger, healthier, more capable version of yourself, check out our website at achievethelifestyle.com.
The Pharmaphobic podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not constitute medical, legal, or professional advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider before making any medical or wellness decisions. While we discuss pharmaceutical, holistic, and alternative health topics, our content is not a substitute for professional medical guidance.